Hi, everybody. Welcome to our Spring 24 Fiction Preview with Candlewick Press. My name is Stephanie Pando, and I'm part of the publicity department at Candlewick. I'm really happy to be here among all of our bookish friends this evening, and I'd also like to introduce my wonderful colleague who will be joining us tonight during the preview.
Hi, I'm Sophie. I'm also part of the publicity department at Candlewick, and I'm very excited to be here with all of you tonight.
Yay. We are really excited to be able to give you a sneak peek of our newest fiction titles for the Spring 24 season, which published between March 2024 and August 2024. And we're very lucky because we have two fabulous authors sharing their upcoming middle grade novels, Kekla Magoon for The Secret Library and Kate DiCamillo for Ferris. Our other special guest tonight leading the conversation is Christine Ballo, co-owner and director of programs for Loyalty Bookstores. If you find it useful, you can follow along in the Edelweiss catalog with all the titles we'll be talking about tonight with the link that was just dropped into the chat box. You can also request digital arcs through Edelweiss at any time during the preview by clicking on the request bar on the right-hand side. At the end of the event tonight, there will be a link that will pop up on your screen to request digital and physical arcs as well. There's also a Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen, so feel free to submit any questions for our speakers through that Q&A box, and we will try to answer as many as possible during the panel tonight. We also have closed captioning available, and it should already be running at the bottom of your screens, which you can toggle on and off with the closed captioning button. It's an automated feature as we improve accessibility for our previews, so please be gentle if it picks up any words incorrectly. If you're having technical difficulties, not to worry, the video will be on demand following the event for all registered attendees. There will also be a virtual goodie bag with all the links mentioned tonight, along with the request form for physical arcs. Before diving in, we do have a few things we want to let you know as housekeeping details. If you are not aware, this year, October 1st to the 7th, is Banned Books Week. Banned Books Week was launched in 1982 in response to a sudden surge in the number of challenges to books in libraries, bookstores, and schools. The annual event highlights the value of free and open access to information and brings together the entire book community, librarians, educators, authors, publishers, booksellers, and readers of all types in the shared support of the freedom to seek and express ideas. At Candlewick Press, we believe in the right to read and to access books, and we proudly stand with those against book banning. In honor of Banned Books Week, we are happy to offer a donation of one book per live attendee, so all of you, to Red Wine and Blue's Banned Bookmobile. Red Wine and Blue is an organization made up of women who believe you don't have to be a political activist to do your part. They're fighting book bans in their very own neighborhoods. For a list of additional banned books and helpful resources on how you can get involved, you can go to bannedbooksweek.org.
And now a bit more housekeeping. First, we are active on social media, so be sure to follow us on our Candlewick Press Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube. And please tag us if you're posting during this preview with hashtag Candlewick Preview. We would love to hear what you all are most excited about. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Walker Books US for commercial middle grade and YA fiction, and our newest imprint, My Teen Press, a first of its kind collaboration between a university press and a children's publisher, covering picture books, middle grade, and of course, YA. Are you a bookish influencer and want to keep up to date on special events like these previews? Be added to our publicity outreach for new titles and be sent ARCs to review. If yes, you can fill out our book influencer and reviewer form to be considered for the program. There is a QR code on the screen here, or you can use the link that will be provided in our virtual goodie bag at the end of the event tonight. We also highly encourage you to tune into our Black Creator Series, which is in its third season. In this educator-focused series highlighting the work of Black authors and illustrators, Dr. Sonia Cherry Paul, bestselling author, founder of Red Clay Educators, and co-founder of the Institute for Racial Equity and Literacy, leads discussions with children's book creators about their work and the powerful ways their books can live in classrooms. For a full schedule and more information as to how to participate in these conversations, you can go to blackcreatorseries.candlewick.com.
If you enjoy these previews and want to get a sneak peek at our picture books coming out in spring 2024, the BYOT Picture Book and Early Reader Preview is this Friday at 2 p.m. on Zoom. Special guests include Supriya Kelkar and Vicky Fang. You can register through the event through the QR code on the screen. Last but not least, we want to make sure that no matter where you are, you can find some of our authors appearing virtually and in person at various festivals and conferences, with more to be added in the coming months. You can check out each of the festivals or bookstores' websites for more information. And now onto our spring 2024 fiction titles. The much anticipated older middle grade novel in verse, Louder Than Hunger by John Shu, is a fictionalized account of John's childhood experiences and emotions living in residential treatment facilities as a young teen with an eating disorder. This is not only John's middle grade debut, but one of the very few books that tackle this topic from the male perspective. It has already garnered an amazing number of reviews and endorsements from some of Kidlet's biggest names like Jeff Kinney, Jason Reynolds, Catherine Applegate, and Lisa Phipps. With a deeply personal afterword for context, Louder Than Hunger is a triumph of raw honesty and a powerful model for muffling the destructive voices inside, managing and articulating pain, and embracing self-acceptance, support, and love. From Lindsay Eager, Made Glorious is her second standalone YA novel after The Family Fortuna. The reader follows Rory, who's a scholarship student at a prestigious academy of the arts and who is intriguing but unreliable and at times unlikable as a narrator. Rory is brutal in her ambition to win the lead role in the musical, and as the school's underdog, the readers will want to root for her. But how far is too far to go for fame? And as a reader, how much of our own complicity comes into watching how Rory goes about getting what she wants? With multiple viewpoints, like in Shakespeare's Richard III, Rory addresses the audience often, making sure that the reader knows what she is about to do, even when you might want to turn away. Told through narrative, script, and even an original musical score, Made Glorious will grip you from the beginning and drag you along for a twisting and unsettling ride.
Next, we have Eddie Eddie. After the deadly 2011 earthquakes in Christchurch, New Zealand, everything in Eddie Smallbone's life seems to be ruined, from his hometown to his personal life. Desperate for a change, Eddie starts his own dog walking and pet sitting business. Through his new job, he meets and cares for an extraordinary cast of characters, including a precocious 7-year-old and a nun and her unruly parrot. However, at the same time, things are fraught with Eddie's former girlfriend, Boo, and his best friend, Thomas Moore, is suffering from a mysterious illness. This tender and layered story from Kate DeGoldie treats YA readers with maturity and doesn't shy away from important issues, including grief and faith, unplanned pregnancy, and mental illness and self-harm. This literary novel has plenty of crossover appeal, and Eddie's story is sure to speak to adult readers as well. Next up, we have The Boy Lost in the Maze. From award-winning poet, playwright, and the 2022 UK Children's Laureate, Joseph Coelho. 17-year-old Theo is desperate to track down the father who left him, whom he scarcely remembers. At school, he discovers Greek mythology and is intrigued by the ancient story of Theseus, a fatherless son driven on a similar search. As Theo begins to compose poetry about Theseus, it becomes clear that Theo and Theseus's journeys echo each other in uncanny ways. This story is written in alternating verses between Theo and Theseus, adding an element of choose your own adventure by inviting the reader to weigh in on the characters' choices. The Boy Lost in the Maze expertly balances the modern with the mythology and takes a compelling look at themes of Blackness, manhood, and father-son dynamics. This book is also lightly illustrated by Kate Milner, who was shortlisted for the Kate Greenaway Award.
The Monarchs of Winghaven is a new middle grade novel by Nalia Moreira. Sammy, a budding naturalist, knows the secret and wonderful place, Winghaven, an abandoned lot in the middle of the suburbs where wildlife flourishes. When Bram, a new boy, turns up with a camera, Sammy worries that he'll give away her haven. But Bram is a scientist like Sammy, and together they observe a tiny pond of local creatures, birds, and thriving monarch butterflies whose habitats are becoming scarce. When Sammy and Bram discover bright tape encircling the trees, they learn Winghaven is in danger from local developer, and it's going to take courage, spirit, and science to save it. This book is full of lovely details about the natural world with real-life notes and illustrations tucked into the pages. In that perfect kid logic where if she is X, I must be the opposite, Princess Marigold thinks her freshly escaped from kidnapping sister is so perfect, which means she must be absolutely wicked. Marigold runs away to an evil wizard's tower and earnestly tries her hand at her supposedly innate wickedness and fails terribly. Marigold becomes tangled up in a plot to ruin all of the kingdoms and finds her own way to restore peace. Perfect for princess and anti-princess fans alike, Wicked Marigold by Caroline Carson is a charming, fantastical romp for those graduating Princess and Black fans.
Perfect for fans of Lemony Snicket and pseudonymous Bosch, author Thomas Taylor has crafted a world of wonderfully odd characters, monsters, and mysteries. Erie-on-Sea is a place to visit again and again, and longtime fans of this series and new readers alike will love the 5th and final book, Mermaidusa. In the spooky, fantastical series conclusion, a team of cryptozoologists arrives in town and sets off a series of events that could reveal the deepest secrets of Erie-on-Sea and the truth about shipwrecked orphan Herbert Lemon. Equal parts fright and delight, this book and the rest of the Erie-on-Sea series is not to be missed. Oh, still me. Next up, we have our MIT titles. New in paperback is Share Better and Stress Less. The world of social media can feel riddled with pitfalls, especially for young people finding their footing. Here from celebrated social media and communication researchers is a user-friendly, down-to-earth guide you can feel comfortable handing over with a young person's first smartphone. Rooted in empathy and rich with relatable examples, it shows how to use social media for its best end and to avoid dangerous missteps. Next up, we have Discovering Life Stories, The Evolution of an Idea. Following Discovering Life Stories, Biology's Beginnings, author Joy Hakeem continues to take a fresh approach to nonfiction for young adult readers in the second installment of this 4-part MIT series. In Volume 2, The Evolution of an Idea, readers will continue to trace the history of life science, charting the path of human discovery and the groundbreaking thinkers who helped unlock the biological secrets of our own existence. And next up, we have our Spring 2024 paperbacks. First is The Family Fortuna. This is a dark and dazzling YA debut by critically acclaimed middle grade author of Hour of the Bees, Lindsay Eager. It's the perfect YA crossover title for fans of Stephanie Garber's Caraval series and Erin Morgenstern's The Night Circus. New York Times bestselling author Claire Legrand encapsulates this book so perfectly, so I'll just take what she said. Heartbreaking, irreverent, hilarious, grotesquely gorgeous, and ultimately triumphant, The Family Fortuna paints an unforgettable picture of a dazzling circus, a messy family bursting with equal parts love and resentment, and most beautifully of all, a girl finding the courage to accept, embrace, and celebrate her true self. Next, we have Every Gift a Curse. The Gift trilogy by New York Times bestselling author Caroline O'Donoghue comes to a climactic and satisfying conclusion. Magic-sensitive Maeve delves deeper into the darker parts of her magic in order to save innocent teens from the children of Brigid. But how far will she go, and who will she lose in the process? Every Gift a Curse came out in hardcover this past May, so you can now binge read this entire series, starting with All Our Hidden Gifts and The Gifts That Bind Us. Calling all K-pop fans. Alexandra Lee Young's Idol Gossip offers an inside look at a fictional K-pop academy, infused with plenty of drama, gossip, and genuine heart. This deep dive into fan culture and the music industry is perfect for anyone who has wanted to go behind the scenes. And in a standout debut for the Me Too era, a young pianist devotes herself to her art and to the demanding, charismatic teacher she idolizes. In Private Lessons, author Cynthia Salisay explores grief, complicated student-teacher relationships, and class and cultural differences with honesty and grace in this timely novel about topics not often addressed in YA fiction.
There's even more paperbacks in spring 2024. A companion novel to her American Indian Youth Literature Award winner, Hearts Unbroken, Cynthia Leidig-Smith leads readers on a cross-genre mystery of contemporary YA fiction and gothic fantasy in Harvest House. The novel follows Huey Wolf as he volunteers at the new rural attraction for Halloween called, you guessed it, Harvest House. Unfortunately, the more Huey looks into the show, the more he sees the grossly misrepresented Indian maiden ghost, the one who was inspired by the local headlines in his own town. Huey, uncomfortable and struggling to find the right ways to speak up about the offensive take, is also investigating the strange and spooky goings-on around their neighborhood and the man stalking young Indigenous girls. Will Huey and his friends be able to protect themselves and the town while also trying to find out if Harvest House is actually haunted after all? Soon out in paperback, Better Than We Found It, Conversations to Help Save the World is an indispensable guide to some of the biggest crises facing our nation. Written by Frederick Joseph, who is a seasoned activist and the New York Times bestselling author of The Black Friend, and debut author Portia Joseph, Better Than We Found It tackles the insurmountable challenges facing the next generation. But change is possible. You just have to know where to start, and the first step is by talking about these issues. The important springboards for conversation in this book, the thoughtfulness and care of Fred and Portia, and the book's messages of human kindness and empathy make this a must-read for every school, every library, and every human who is interested in creating positive change. And possibly one of the cutest covers in existence, Always Clementine by Carly Sorosiak, is out in paperback this spring. The story follows Clementine, who is different from other mice. She can calculate the speed of light, and she dreams in Latin. Clementine is proud to be a good lab mouse, but she's lonely. Her only snatches of friendship occur during her late-night visits with a chimpanzee named Rosie. When the compassionate lab technician frees Clementine, she discovers an outside world full of wonders. But Clementine is not satisfied by this. She knows that she wants to be free, but Rosie and the other mice are not. Narrated in letters from a mouse to a chimpanzee, Always Clementine shows us that goodness is something we have to define ourselves, and that courage and wisdom aren't proportionate to your size. And in case you missed it, if you are new here or if you forgot during our spring 2023 preview, there are a couple books that are out now and coming out soon this fall. In this thrilling Afro fantasy, first set in the lush, opulent kingdom of Gala, a girl raised in secret must leave her sheltered rural home for the subtle dangers of the royal court, where she becomes caught up in deadly power struggles and romantic intrigue. Goddess Crown is out now. The threads of time, a web of schemes, shifting loyalties, and blossoming identities converge in Maggie Takuta Hall's remarkable sequel to The Mermaid, the Witch, and the Sea, as unlikely allies work together to forge a new and better world. The Siren, the Song, and the Spy is also out now. It's 1987, and 16-year-old Gracie Byrne would give anything for her real life to be more like the fictional characters she creates. But when Gracie discovers a blank journal in her grandmother's old hat box and begins filling it with stories, she realizes that what she writes in her journal actually comes true. With the ability to become anyone and to do almost anything, what sort of role will she write for herself? This is Shannon Takaoka's sophomore novel. The Totally True Story of Gracie Byrne is out on October 31st. And from webtoon sensation and Ono comic artist Alex Norris comes How to Love, your funny, wise, and very different guide to relationships of all shapes and sizes, covering topics from singlehood to jealousy to happily ever after, all delivered in Alex Norris's clever, accessible, and bright graphic style. And now I'd like to introduce our moderator for tonight's closing panel. Christine Ballo is the co-owner and director of programs for Loyalty Bookstores in Washington, D.C. and Silver Spring, Maryland. She is a 2022 Publishers Weekly Star Watch honoree, graduate of Barnard College, and currently serves on the American Bookseller Association's DEI committee. As a biracial Filipina who is queer and also disabled, Christine is passionate about championing marginalized authors both at Loyalty and on her Bookstagram at Reading is Magical. Please welcome Christine.
Thank you, Stephanie. I have so many more books to add to my TBR, by the way. A good problem. So I am extremely honored and super excited to be in conversation tonight with two absolutely incredible authors. Firstly, I'd like to introduce Kate DiCamillo, one of America's most beloved storytellers. She is a former National Ambassador for Young People's Literature and a two-time Newbery medalist. No big deal, you know. Born in Philadelphia, Kate grew up in Florida and now lives in Minneapolis. And our other author of the hour for tonight, Kekla Magoon, is the renowned author of numerous fiction and nonfiction titles for young readers, including X, a novel, co-written by Ilyasah Shabazz, Revolution in Our Time, The Black Panthers' Parties, Promise to the People, and The Season of Styx Malone. Kekla has received the Margaret E. A. Edwards Award, an NAACP Image Award, a Boston Globe Horn Book Award, and 4 Coretta Scott King honors. Also, no big deal. Y'all are amazing. Kekla Magoon lives in Vermont and teaches at Vermont College of Fine Arts. Kekla, Kate, thrilled to have you both here with us this evening. Yay!
I'm so happy to be here.
Welcome, welcome. So first, for people who maybe aren't familiar with your books yet, didn't get a chance to read the description before the panel tonight, can you tell us a little bit about your book? Kate, if you'd like to go first.
I wouldn't like to go first, but I will.
I mean, we could have Kekla go first if you want to. I've got both of the books.
So it's always hard for me to book talk. So this is the story of Ferris, whose real name is Emma Phineas Wilkie, and it's the story of one summer, and it's a love story and a ghost story, and there's a raccoon in it. And I think that sums it up handily. Yes. Ghost, raccoon, love. Yes.
Every good story is a love story.
Every good story is a love story.
And Kekla, for you, could you tell us a little bit about your book?
This is The Secret Library, and I think the summation is that it is a story about secrets and adventure and finding out who you are. And of course, that has a lot of different layers for a lot of people. But for Dally, the character in the Secret Library, it's all about family and figuring out where she has really come from. She lives in a very fancy house with a mom who is very focused on business. She comes from a family that has a lot of money, and her mother is singularly focused on keeping it that way. But Dally wants to be out in the world having adventures. And so when her grandfather, her beloved grandfather who adventured with her, passes away, he leaves her a map to a mysterious location. And so Dally follows the map and finds the secret library, which is not a secret library like we don't know where it is. It's this library of secrets. So when you go to the secret library, the books that you check out are adventures, and in fact portals to adventure. So you get to travel to a moment in time when a secret occurred or was created or was shared. And so Dally time travels into her family's past and has a great adventure.
I love it. Yay. So I love it. Okay, both of your books have immersive worlds, immersive stories, but also like memorable characters and characters you want to be friends with, you want to hang out with. Like I'm curious for both of you, was the first kernel of inspiration for your books, was it story or characters first?
Oh, that's a tough one. Hekla's going to answer that one first.
All
I
right.
sense a theme here. I sense a theme here, Kate.
So usually for me, the answer is character, because it's usually a voice or a kind of person that pops into my mind that has a particular something that they want to tell, and I don't usually know what the story is at all. In the case of the Secret Library, it actually was prompted by reading a bio of another author, the very famous and very fancy author Holly Black. Long ago, probably 10 years ago, I saw a bio of Holly Black that said that in her house, she has a secret library. Now, this is true because behind a hidden door, right, kind of one of those bookcases that comes out of the wall and you can go behind it, she has that kind of secret library in her house. But for some reason, when I read that in her bio that day on the internet, what came to mind was not a secret library, but the secret library, right? And so I was like, what if it wasn't just hidden behind a bookcase? What if it was a library of secrets? And I found that idea so teasing that I chased it for about 10 years, and I didn't have a story and I didn't have a character and I didn't know what it was. I just knew that it seemed like a really cool premise. And so it was about 2 years ago, actually 3 years ago now, that I picked up kind of the little half page that I had written and I said, I really want this to be something. What is it? And I got kind of that second spark that tells you what it's going to be. And so I was able to draft it.
So can I ask Hekla a question without stepping on
absolutely.
Because, yeah. So you said that you don't outline generally, like, but to do something this complicated, did you fly by the seat of your pants and to do, I mean, this has got a lot of moving parts. So yes.
It does have a lot. It does have a lot of moving parts, but I still, I don't know how to enter a story without sort of being pretty random about it. So I drafted a lot of scenes that weren't in sequence, which in some ways is perfect for a time travel novel, but in other ways is very tricky because the structure and the way that everything fits together has to be really seamless in the end. So that idea of outlining and creating structure for the novel was definitely part of my revision process. It wasn't part of the drafting process. I started with just a lot of chaos, and I usually get about 80 pages of chaos before I figure out, okay, there's something really here, I want to chase it, and now I need to figure out where the pieces that I have sort of fit on the overall timeline of a story. And I tend to use post-it notes to do that, to lay out the parts of the story I know, and then I see the gaps in between.
Interesting. Interesting. So I write like you, but not as, I mean, not with something this complex. And so it's usually like a voice, like you said, or a phrase or an image that will start me. And with Ferris, it was my dad had passed away, and the same year that he passed away, my best friend had a grandchild born on his birthday. And it was this deeply moving thing to me because my father was very, very fraught relationship, and this child entered into the world, and all the pictures were coming in it was just, she was surrounded by both of her grandparents, both of her parents, and I just had this idea of, I guess it's a concept novel. What if a kid knew from the moment that they arrived in the world that the very moment that they arrived, that they were loved absolutely. So that's where I started.
You're gonna make me cry.
but I mean, it's what everyone needs, and a lot of people don't get, right? And so to be able to give it to a character was it was just freeing for me in a lot of ways.
And you really feel that love come through reading the book, and it's complex in different ways. Ferris, like, you know, the whole town, all the people in it, the house, like everything is just so vivid. Like I really could picture the you know, the movie in my mind while reading both books. So I'm going to get a little personal for the next question. You know, grief, loss, the anticipation of loss is a really powerful thread in both of your books, you know, in their own ways. And my sister passed away over the summer, and reading both of your books to prepare for this was like very healing in its own way. And I'm going to cry now. It was very healing. And, you know, so many kids' books have, like, you know, the themes of grief, loss, you know, death of a loved one. And, you know, it feels like it's this important catalyst for change, like that hero's journey aspect. But I'm curious for these books specifically, or these characters like Ferris and Dali, why did it feel right to incorporate that aspect into their story? Why did it feel like, you know, that part of their story needed to be told for you too?
Yeah. Kekla, I'll go first. I'll give you a break this time. Okay? You know, that was when my best friend's granddaughter was born, was the last day of 2019, and then came 2020, and so this book was written with this love at its base, but surrounded by grief. And so and you know, even if it hadn't been 2020, that's what it means to be a human being. It's like we lose each other, you know. And so it's always frustrating for me that people think sometimes that doesn't belong in books for kids, because children are human beings. That means that you are going to grieve, you know, and to have a story that like talks about what it means to be human and to be here and to lose, it's a way, it gives you a container for your grief, and it gives you language for your grief. Because even as adults, we still struggle to articulate what it feels like, and that's what a story can do for us. Okay, Kekla, I'll pass it to you.
I like listening to you. That's a really good description. I think, you know, the grief is such a part of life in so many different ways, you know, the little things and the big things. And, you know, for Dali, she has her recent loss is her grandfather, who helped to raise her. A slightly more distant loss from when she was very small is her father. And because it's a time travel novel, she goes to a place where she can actually see her father when he's young, before he has her. And so that's, you know, a fantasy, right? For anybody who's lost somebody, is like, what if I got them back for a minute? And it's not the same, and it's not, you know, exactly going to fill the hole of what's missing, but it's a glimpse, right, of this thing, because part of what we're grieving, right, is the future. We're grieving the things that we didn't get to do together, the things that we didn't get to experience, and so that's part of the fantasy of what the Secret Library brings for Dali. And I think that you know, it does give hope to read books about grief, because we see the character move through it. We see that in the end, you know, the thing that you've lost doesn't come back to you, you know, certainly not in the same way, and probably not at all, but you get something else, right? There's always something else. And in that moment of grief, it doesn't feel like there's going to be something else. And it's not going to be the same. It is going to be different. It's going to not fill exactly that hole, right? But it gives you something new. And so that feeling of hope that I think often we don't feel when we're in the throes of grief, we see it come to life through these stories. And so hopefully that gives some comfort to readers out there who might be experiencing some loss of their own.
Yeah. All right, so I want to talk about two of my favorite characters, the grandparents, respective grandparents, Charisse, who is just amazing. And then John, who also is amazing. And I'm putting in an official petition to have a crossover short story with the two of you, with an epic love story where they like meet on vacation or something. Because they're both amazing.
It was super exciting to read Kekla's book and to see that we're like, you know, there are a lot of similarities.
A
There's
lot, yeah.
that absolute love of a grandparent. And yeah, no, I'm totally on board for that. And however, Charisse is a real handful, and I feel for anybody who ends up dating her. Yeah.
I think John could handle it.
I think you need to be well versed in all 5 love languages to woo Charisse. But I think John's got it covered.
He's always up for an adventure, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Did you guys have?
You know, I love the idea, Christine. Like, you know what we could do, Kekla? We could do it in letters, which would be so much fun to do.
That would be so cool.
See, because
I love it.
Yeah,
I love that idea.
Yeah,
I really think it would be great. Like, yeah. I mean, I have some of my favorite characters from both books, but were they your favorite characters to write? Did you have other favorite characters to write, or ones that you were like, you know, kind of a slog to kind of get through for whatever reason?
I always end up in the camp of I love everybody. I love the villains. And I'm always like, I can't wait to see what comes out of their mouth, because it's just like I don't know. Kekla, is that the way it is for you? Do you love everybody?
I love everybody. I love the challenge of writing some characters. So for instance, in this case, Dali's mom is a tricky character, right? Because she's you know, she's very kind of austere in her present day. Her present day self is very austere, and she has this child who, you know, they don't always sort of see eye to eye or connect, and she's very concerned about keeping the business afloat. And, you know, she's sort of no nonsense and doesn't seem to have time for anything that Dali is interested in. But because it's a time travel adventure, Dali gets to go back in time and see again, like, her parents before they have her. And it's fun to imagine that character that normally I would not have thought about that character's childhood necessarily. I don't always do that level of character development on my secondary characters. I know some writers do, and maybe I should, but I don't always. So it was kind of fun to imagine, like, who was this person as a young girl before she was a mother? And it gave me a very different personality, and I got to actually play with that and see that on the page. And so that gave these characters dimension, because, you know, we don't see Dali's father in the present day, but we see him in the past. But so it's like she has her own very fleeting memories of him as a young person, and then she gets to actually see what he was like kind of in flesh and blood. And so that's kind of fun to play with. My favorite characters, though, are the characters that Dali goes on her pirate adventure with back in the 1850s. Yes. So Jack and Pete and Eli are her pirate folks, and their storyline is the one that I spend the most time on in the book, because he's out there, you know, at the open sea and really having an adventure.
It was so fun. There was the mom, there was one line that I remember, like, you know, in my notes saying LOL. It was something like, "You're made up of hummus and homework." I was like, that is so specific and so perfect So speaking of pirate adventures and 1850s, if y'all could time travel to sometime in the past, whether it's your past or, in general, is there a time period that you would want to go to?
I'm kind of a now girl.
Yeah.
Yeah, even as I'm not gonna fall for the nostalgia of it was better then. And I love when we go on the ship and what's the very first thing that she notices? The stench. And it's just like, yes, and it's like it's so. And I have to say, Kekla, that I could see you wanted to do, you want a pirate book. That's very clear. Yeah. It's just like it was so much fun in there, and I could feel how much fun you were having too. Yeah.
Definitely.
I don't know that I'd want to go to another time. So
would you go to the future?
Oh no.
No.
I definitely think I would rather go to the future. It's tricky because so part of the challenge of this book and part of the challenge of that question is that it's a really it's a very complicated thing as a Black person to imagine going to the past, right? Because as Kate was saying, like, it's not this imagined place that was better, right? I certainly don't see it that way, right? I see that we've moved through these really difficult times, and some were more difficult than others, but it's always been difficult, especially in this cultural context and in this land. And so, like, I feel like the task of making it a fun time travel adventure with Black characters was part of the thing I wanted to try, and the thing that I wanted to tackle with this. Like, can I have a fun time travel adventure that takes my Black character into the past while acknowledging all of those difficult things that were part of the past, while allowing
you don't shy away from what that actually would mean, which is great, but it's still like it's fun and there's so much going on. Yes, well done, both of you. Good job. All right, we're just going to change gears a little. So I always love hearing about the writing process, like the revision process specifically, the journey from first draft, final, published draft. And I know you two share the same editor, right?
Yeah.
Can you talk about the revision process for you, how it was? Can we do like a little Andrea love sesh going on?
I love Andrea Tampa. I know you love Andrea Tampa too. And it's just, when we did the meeting, the tech check for this, I said that thing that I think a lot of people don't really understand how integral an editor is to this. And it's just like, to me, it always feels like that I'm in the trenches of the battlefield, and that Andrea is above and can look down and see things that I cannot see. Or it's also a little bit like being in therapy, right? And she's I've done this sometimes when she's in the audience when I'm doing an event where I talk about how terrible it is to receive those editorial letters, which are, some of them have been 8 single space pages long. Kekla, have yours been that long?
Some of them, yeah.
Yeah.
This one for sure.
I always have the same reaction, which is it's a very ungenerous one, which is if you know so much, why don't you write a novel? And and then I like spread it all out. I take notes, and she's so brilliant at not telling us what to do, right? But rather asking questions that that show the way, and so it's just and I every time I get a better, more deeply felt book because of her very light hand, because it is ultimately light. And she'll say sometimes, you don't have to do this if this doesn't resonate. So, okay, Kekla, I'll let you sing her praises now, because
it will be an operetta, because I can go on and on and on. But she is the most amazing. Like, she's just really good at reading really carefully. I will put a line in there as I'm drafting, now that we've worked together for a while, I'll put a line in there as I'm drafting that I'm kind of go, oh, I'm iffy on that. I could spend another hour just kind of massaging that line until it reads a little bit better to me. And I was like, but it might be fine the way that it is, but it might need to be, I'm going to leave it and see what Andrea says. And 100% of the time that I have a line like that she either highlights it and says, this is unusual, but working well. Or she highlights it and says, nope, we got to change that. Like she always like laser focuses on everything that I already know might be iffy. And then she takes it to another level. This letter for the Secret Library, I don't remember exactly how many pages it was. It was definitely at least 7 or 8, maybe 9, maybe 10. I don't know. It went on for quite a while. But I read it the first time I read it. So I'm a little bit strange because most authors react like Kate, where they say, well, how dare you? And I actually am the opposite, where I get excited and I'm just like, I can't wait to hear the editorial feedback. And I'm so excited. And it makes me want to dive back in and revise.
Wow.
But when I got this letter, I looked at it and I said, okay, like, this is great. Like, she feels like the book is doing well. Like, she doesn't really need me to do that much. Like, for, even though she went on for like 9 pages, like it's actually not that big of a thing. I don't think it's going to take me that long. And I set it aside because I had to go to a conference or something. And then I picked it back up a couple of weeks later and thinking, okay, I'm going to polish this up in a couple of, like a week or so, and then I read the letter again and I was like, oh, wait, no, she's her little gentle questions are causing me to have to sculpt the entire core of my novel and also my soul. Okay, all right. But it strengthens the book so much, and she's so good at pulling out the options. She did an amazing thing in this letter too, where she said, well, you could go this way, you could go this way, and here I'm going to give you a detailed analysis of what each would look like, which is the first time I've had that happen. And I really loved it because being able to kind of play off those 2 suggestions really thoughtfully like that led me to, it was really clear when I started reading the letter that I wanted one, not the other, but reading both helped clarify why. And so it was just, I don't know, I just think she goes above and beyond. And
let's just give her a shout out for how she answers us right away. I mean, it's astonishing.
It is.
I mean, so you never, and to me, this is one of the, one, she never says anything she doesn't mean. And 2, because she's so present and invested, you never feel alone. It is really like she's, the terror of trying to write. But Keckley, you don't have terror, I guess. I have so much terror. And she, I because for her, I never feel like I'm alone.
Yeah, I guess I don't usually feel terror until the book is coming out, and then I'm like, oh no, what have I done? But in the writing process, I usually don't feel scared. What I do feel often is lonely, in that I feel like part of why I write the novels that I write and part of why I tell the stories that I tell is that I don't know how to communicate some of those things and those thoughts and those feelings any other way, and that can be a lonely feeling, right? And so I feel like Andrea kind of steps into the foxhole, to use your metaphor, right? Like she has the ability to step out in a way that I don't, and have that bird's eye view that you're describing, but she also kind of, I feel like she'll come in and be like, hey, I'm here with you too, and I get this, and I understand what we're fighting for here, and I want to help you succeed. And so that is a different kind of comfort, right? But it comes from the same place, I think, that you're describing.
Yeah. Shout out to Andrea, who it's also her birthday.
Happy birthday.
Andrea Tampa, happy birthday.
Happy birthday. We won't sing, but we're thinking it in our heads. Okay. Hard-hitting question. There is a beautiful magnolia tree that overlooks and kind of like watches in from the kitchen window of Ferris's house. What is your favorite tree? Go.
I love that question. Have y'all read Braiding Sweetgrass?
Yes.
Robin Wall Kilmer, and she talks about how trees in native culture are the standing people, And so I love that. And when I'm out walking, I greet every tree I walk past. I try not to move my lips because I've got, but I do. And so I love them all. I've got a red bud in my front yard that I planted when the Beatrice prophecies came out. And so that one is particularly dear to me.
Wow, an
Do you have a
individual
favorite
tree is tricky. Yeah. So, I mean, one tree that comes to mind is there was a tree, a very large, very old tree at the summer camp I went to in Indiana, that there was like kind of a labyrinth of rocks in front of it, and you could kind of have a little meditative walk near it. And so it was a place that people would sort of gather sometimes. And so that sort of sitting under that tree has a kind of important memories attached to it for me. I also have a pair of maples in my backyard that have a hammock in between them. Well, they have hooks for the hammock tied around them, and then you can put the hammock in between them and lay under the trees in the summer and sway and read all the books. And so it is my favorite spot to read. So that's 2 trees, but they work together to do something important.
Amazing. It's funny because I was thinking favorite kind of tree, but I love how you both interpreted it.
Yeah.
I love it because my favorite kind of tree is dogwood. I love dogwood trees, but I love all trees. I'm a Libra, so I'm very indecisive and I like a lot of things. But if I had to pick dogwood, but I love how you both interpreted it. So now I have to think about like my specific favorite tree.
Well, and I have to say that I love getting a tree question. It's never happened before. Yeah.
Oh, yay.
Yeah, that's a first.
I'm so glad. Well, thank you both for sharing your answers. So we're going to get to some audience questions shortly, but let me just see if there were any little last questions I wanted to make sure we got to. Kate, specifically, were there any other contenders for songs that Billy Jackson plays on the piano? Or did you always know it was going to be Mysterious Barricades? And why? Why that one?
You've got some really good question writing skills.
Thank
That piece of music by Francois Couperin is absolutely central to this. It's just like one of those things where I don't know if it's like this for you, Kekla, but it's just like once you have kind of like the beginning thing, then these other things that have been waiting in the wings, and you knew that they were going to matter, but you didn't know what story they were going to matter for. I mean, like I have a notebook where I write down story ideas and I transfer those from notebook to notebook. And then like I'll be working on something and this is where this belongs. So that piece of music has mattered to me for a very long time. And it's originally written for a harpsichord, but I fell in love with Angela Hewitt playing that on the piano. That's when I heard it. My father played the piano, and so the piano has a special resonance for me. And so it was just like as soon as I knew it was that piece, it was just like it opened up the whole thing with there's a character named Billy Jackson who plays piano very beautifully. He's a friend of Ferris's, her best friend, and he plays that piece over and over. And that's what Kekla, do you listen to music as you work?
Sometimes. Sometimes, not always.
Yeah, I always just have a piece of music that a soundtrack, and so I just listen to Mysterious Barricades over and over again.
Secret Library.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say for the Secret Library, I listened to some soundtracks from pirate movies, like Pirates of the Caribbean, just the the score.
Yeah.
So I listened to some of those and some other pirate movies.
I love that.
Movies, sea-worthy movies.
Nice. Yeah, I was gonna say when a song is referenced in a book, I always listen to it. So it, that it kind of like gets into my psyche while I'm reading the book. So I'm curious for y'all, so like, okay, The Secret Library, it really reminded me of elements of Kindred, Octavia Butler's Kindred, or the graphic novel Displacement by Kiko Hughes, where, oh, it's so good, with like kind of this you know, this very interesting take on memory, time travel through memory, different, you know, things like that. Your, you know, family history, like unraveling of like generational trauma. So those were some of the things that were in my mind when I was reading Secret History, or Secret Library, sorry.
Okay.
So, but for both of you, what books or other forms of media do you think that your book is in conversation with?
Interesting.
Definitely Kindred. I mean, that was one of my thoughts in writing this, was Kindred for middle grade.
Yeah,
right?
that's what
Because
I've been telling people. So well done.
yeah, that's I mean, in fact, that's how I pitched it when I sent in my little
Ah, all
when I
right,
sent
we're
in the letter
like,
to Andrea. I was like, it needs When You Reach Me.
yes.
um, and they used it, like
Yeah,
it's still part of the marketing copy because it's
amazing.
true.
And it really comes through. Yeah.
Yeah, so I wanted those are the two that were sort of looming largest to me, because I loved When You Reach Me. Like, I love how just so much about that book. And how, like, it struck me as sort of this sort of complete whole, but it's got those time travel elements where you think you know what's happening and then it's slightly different, and you know, you learn through time and everything. And I wanted to sort of replicate some of those elements, but I was equally interested in the like that question of how can I tell a story like Kindred without, you know, in Kindred the character comes from contemporary time and ends up in an enslavement situation, and I was like, I don't want that story, right? Partly because it's been done, because Octavia Butler is brilliant and does things in a way that you don't want to exactly replicate or try to, but I do want to be in conversation with that and say, okay, what would it be like to look at time travel for a young Black child in a slightly different way, visiting the same time period potentially, but in a slightly different, with a different tone and feel and style.
You know, I'm listening to you talk and thinking, is Ferris in conversation with it? And you know what the answer is oddly Eudora Welty is the first thing that pops into my head, because it's one of the things that, and I go back and reread the collected stories of Eudora Welty every year, and one of the things that always kind of like knocks my socks off every time is how she loves all of the characters. It's just like they are held in a very loving way. And so it's just, even though Ferris has nothing to do with Eudora Welty, I can imagine Eudora Welty living in that town where Ferris lives, and Ferris being able to find her way to Eudora Welty's house. Does that make sense?
Definitely.
So it's really strange, because I've never there's no conscious thought about any of that, but like to like try to excavate it, it's just like that's where my subconscious is, and I never I wouldn't have been aware of that without the question, which is really interesting.
I love that. Yeah, it kind of like, I'm not thinking of a specific movie, but it made me feel very, you know, that nostalgic, timeless quality of like the coming of age movies. Watching, for me as a child of the 80s and early 90s, like that time period, which I think it could depend on when you grow up. It's like that timeless feeling of a lot of those movies. Yeah.
And that you're being, you know, again, held a little bit, you know, you're in a safe place, which to me, a book is always a safe place, but it's just like it's the way that Ferris is loved from the very beginning. I want the reader to be able to feel that love too, you know, for themselves.
Yeah, you do. As a reader, I felt it. I really did.
Oh.
I have like little hearts with all of the character introductions. Like all the little things with them, I'm like, oh, I love you. All right, we're gonna go to some audience questions. Let's see, for both of you, which character from a previous book of yours would your main characters, so Ferris or Dali, want to be friends with?
Wow. Go ahead, Kekla.
So this is when you're like, I have written so many books. How do I go
What
through
have I
them in my mind?
What's
Okay, so the ones that come to mind first are the I think the main character in Shadows of Sherwood, which is a Robin Hood retelling in which Robin is a biracial teenage girl who lives in a city and has some of the same kind of personality qualities of Dali, being a little bit of a loner, but kind of wanting to go out in the world and make friends and make a difference and be. These are themes that come up in all of my books, actually. But I think that Robin from Shadows of Sherwood and Dali would be very, very fast friends and would have a lot of great adventures together. And yeah, I think that's probably the best. That's probably the best fit.
Yeah, and that gave me time to think. And I mean, and I really, it doesn't really require any thought. I can totally see Ferris and India Opal Bologna being friends. Did you, Christine, when you, oh, it wasn't you, that was an audience question.
That was an audience question.
I'm wondering if the person who asked that, if they could get on there and say if they had their own answers, you know, it's just like, that would be really interesting to me, you know?
Yeah.
But
They can make appearances in the love letter story that you guys are going to write, right?
oh, right.
Right.
I'm holding you to it. No pressure. Okay, so Kekla, this is from Lisa. First of all, I want to tell you, thank you so much for writing your writing that empowers and uplifts Black kids. We did Styx Malone in our middle grade book club. The kids loved it. The question is about how you're inspired to create your characters. Are they somewhat inspired by folks you know or not? Do they have like elements of people you know?
I think for sure they have elements of people that I know. Definitely. So since you're a fan of the season of Styx Malone, I can give you examples from Styx Malone. So so there are elements of the mom character that are very much my mom, like Caleb and Bobby Jean's mom says stuff my mom has said. Caleb and Bobby Jean's mom grows big boy tomatoes and early girl tomatoes because she has boys and girls. My mom did that, like for me and my brother. And so there's little things like that, like little details, like we always had to eat vegetables before we were allowed to eat the hot dog that you know, those characters do around the campfire, and things like that. So I think you know, it's a story of two brothers, Caleb and Bobby Jean Franklin, and Caleb is the one who is longing for adventure. He wants to get out in the world and he wants to make a, you know, he wants to make a name for himself, sort of, at, you know, 10. And then his older brother Bobby Jean is much more cautious and much more like, wait, are you sure? Should we jump that boxcar? I don't know if that's a great idea, but then here we go, right? Because Caleb wants to do it. And so I think that Caleb's desire to make a difference, Caleb's desire to be somebody who matters and to feel bigger than he feels, to not be ordinary, is something that comes from me, and something that I share. But in reality, I'm not the person who actually does it. I'm the Bobby Jean who's like, I have all these things I want to do in the world, and I'm going to write about them in a story because heaven forbid I actually go out in the world and do it. So, you know, in that sense, those two characters are both aspects of me, but they're both things I'm not and things I would like to be. So those are kind of examples of trying to be a little bit different. I mean, Dali is very different from me. She looks a lot like me. My hair's not quite long enough or not quite short enough to succeed in the like little pigtails that she's got going on the cover. I almost did that for our event tonight. But you know, she looks like me, but she's actually quite a bit more different from me than a lot of my other characters.
Well, I know reading Secret Library, and like as a biracial person who didn't really have literature to like understand a lot of those feelings. You know, it makes me so happy that kids now have yearbooks and you know, a wealth of other books to read to help them like understand the nuances and intricacies of like what it is to live in this world as a biracial person. So yay. All right, we have one more audience question. How are y'all celebrating this year's banned books week? What keeps you from getting disappointed, or how do you stay positive about, you know, despite the fact that book bans are still happening?
Yeah, we have a lot of, I'm in a neighborhood where there are a lot of little free libraries. And one of the things that keeps me positive is I don't know how many times I walk past and kids are in there, like now after school, I can see them stopping on their way home and pulling, and they're like so invested and I get so agitated about banned books that I'm just like, because of that very, what you were just saying about being able to find yourself in a book is so, it literally can save your life. And so it's not only taking away finding yourself, but it's also finding the person that you can become because of the book. So every time I feel like I can't stand the despair, I go out and I walk and I look at not just the kids but adults, and how much reading is going on, and how those books are accessible to anybody walking by, you know, and it gives me a little bit of solace. Kathleen, sorry.
Yeah. I definitely take comfort in just our readers and knowing that for all the many years that there have been people out there trying to keep kids from reading books, kids still find the books, you know. They found Judy Blume, they'll find me, you know. And so I think that the kids are the hope, and you know, all the work that teachers and librarians and parents are out there doing to keep the books on the shelves is also really heartening and empowering. I've signed my name to a couple of letters that have gone out from We Need Diverse Books, the organization to support opposition to book banning and various challenges that have occurred in different places. And you know, my actual biggest contribution to this conversation is to simply keep creating books that are likely to be banned, because that's what I do, and I'm not going to let the conversation about some people not wanting those books to stop me from making them. And so I think that we have to just keep showing up at our desk and writing the book, because you never know what's going to happen to the book. We never know if it's going to get published. You never know if it's going to find the readers we want it to find. And so this doesn't change anything about the creative part. We just have to keep showing up and doing the work and trusting that the readers are going to find the books that they need.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you both. Stephanie, while you're popping back on, I just have one final question to wrap up this fabulous conversation. What is, and I'll answer it so you have time to think, Kate. What is something big or small that's bringing you joy right now? And as my example, my little coaster, it says Chihuahua or muffin. And every day I use it at my desk and it makes me really happy. So big or small, what's bringing you joy?
Is it wrong to say just the cover?
No, not at all. It's gorgeous.
I have, this is I think my 19th novel, and it has been a long time since I shed actual tears when I opened the box and the arcs were there and I pulled it out, and it's so vibrant. And I've seen I've seen many times the cover image online, but it's just, it pops to life in real life. And so I'm grateful to B. Jackson, the illustrator, and to the book designers for making it so beautiful. And yeah, brought a tear to my eye, but it was a joyful tear.
I love it. Thank you. Kate? Oh.
Ooh.
Yeah, and it's just like, I remember, this is the Emily Wilson translation, and I always, I let myself, I am allowed to read in the afternoon for about an hour. I always tell myself it's my job. I'm allowed to do this, and to delve into this fantastic translation and this old, really powerful story. It makes you talk about time travel, right? And how you You just so this is my little thing that cheers me up every day is to see how powerful this story is and how long it's lasted and how much comfort there is in it.
Yeah.
So
I love that. Thank you. And then the Iliad translation just came out
yes,
last week.
yes, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll wait for that in paperback.
Yeah, it's a
yeah.
big one.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both so much. Thank you to everyone who was able to join us virtually this evening. I'm sure you can tell I absolutely love these books. Like, it's not just lip service, like they really meant a lot to me as a reader, as a bookseller. I think that they are gonna capture the hearts of a lot of people, and I'm very excited for the journey you're going to go on when you read Ferris and the Secret Library. So yay.
Christine, you did a beautiful job. Thank you.
Yeah, wonderful questions.
Yeah.
And it's always wonderful to see you and chat with you, Kate.
Yeah, and you too, Kekla, and thank you for your story. I loved it. It was all day Sunday, and it was like I felt I'd been on the high seas. It was great. Yeah.
Well, this is basically the end of our preview. We hope everybody enjoyed it as much as we did. Christine, I'm obsessed with your coaster. I think it's the best. I just want to thank our guest authors, Kate and Kekla, our wonderful moderator, Christine, my colleague, Sophie, who presented with me, and Dana, who is running tech behind the scenes. You can request your physical or digital ARCs of the titles mentioned tonight, including Ferris and the Secret Library. A link should pop up on your browser when the webinar ends, but if it doesn't, there's also a link that's going to be dropped in the chat box, I think. And that's it. Thank you for joining us. Have a wonderful rest of your week and stay safe, and goodbye for now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.